right, time to welcome in Jerry Pond to break this all down. The Wolverines' first win in Columbus in 7 years, now 11-1 in conference play. Best start since 1976, Jerry. How does Sunday's game impact those #1 seeds when you look at these two?
Well, Sunday's game doesn't really impact the #1 seeds because Michigan isn't going to move up ahead of Gonzaga or Baylor, as dominant as those two teams have been this year, and neither one of them has lost. So until that happens, Michigan's pretty much at a ceiling. For Ohio State, they've got Illinois right on their heels, but this loss doesn't put them behind Illinois just yet. And really the difference between these two right now is Ohio State's win at Illinois earlier in the season. Now they'll play again to end the regular season on March 6th. So we may still have some sorting out to do here. But at least for now, Michigan's still #3 overall. Ohio State's still #4 overall.
All right, speaking of #1 to land, Gonzaga is undefeated. There's been talk that they could be the first undefeated national champion, depending once we get there. But they're thinking about skipping the WCC tournament as a whole. The Zags won the regular season title, pretty much a lock for the big dance. Mark Few talking about this over the weekend, saying, I'm more than happy to play in a league tournament and give everybody a shot. But this is a very, very different year, and some of us are facing really, really stringent requirements as far as getting our tests before we're even allowed to go into Indy. And when you hear this, Jerry, just out of curiosity, if they do pull out of the conference tournament, how does that impact their quest for the #1 seed overall?
Well, it doesn't really impact that very much. They really have one shot at a quality win in their league tournament, and that's BYU. So they would miss out on that, while Baylor is stacking Big 12 wins, in a competitive scenario. Or even Michigan stacking Big 10 wins in a competitive scenario. I don't think the NCAA would do anything punitive to Gonzaga, but they don't really have much of a chance to defend their position if they're not playing. The bigger problem for the West Coast Conference would be if BYU opts out as well, and there's some talk about that too. And now you've got a watered-down conference tournament, and the NCAA would not be very happy if the West Coast Conference decided to send the champion of a watered-down tournament to the NCAA, knocking out a more deserving team.
All right, so you see there, of course, Baylor could be in conversation if you had other teams to possibly sit out. We don't know, but when you think about it, it's a different climate when we're talking about the COVID pandemic affecting college basketball there. But I want to look at some bubble teams here in the ACC. UNC and Duke getting wins over the weekend. The Tar Heels second straight, Blue Devils third in a row. Possible bubble watch if you're looking at these two, Jerry?
For Carolina, for sure. They've been on it for a while. They've been right around the cut line today in the bracket as one of the last 4 in. So Carolina just needs higher quality wins. That Louisville is the best team they've beaten so far this year. Good Lord, did they beat them? Because that's, a 45-point win. I know Louisville's coming off a COVID pause, but that's the worst single performance coming off a COVID pause anybody has had all year. But good for North Carolina because they need wins like that. Duke beats Virginia, and that's nice, and it puts them to 10-8, 2 games above 500. But their resume is really still pretty thin. They're 2-3 against the first quadrant. I think 2-2 in the second quadrant, 3-2 in the third quadrant. They're a hit and miss team. This was their best hit. But Michigan State, who won at Duke earlier this year, right now has a better tournament resume than Duke.
Yeah, the Blue Bloods trying to make some type of appearance, late push towards we get to the end of the season. Jerry Palm is always tapping in on the bracketology and keeping us interested as we head closer to the tournament time, of course. Iowa College Basketball Podcast, the fellas always keeping us interested there. Gary Parrish and Matt Norland are breaking it down, of course. The possible news of Gonzaga sitting out their tournament and how that would affect the seeding. We're talking the field of 68 along with others, maybe. Don't know, but download, subscribe. The fellas always talking about the good stuff.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.